Before we dive into the story, hey everyone. If you're excited to witness a human outsmart an entire alien patrol, make sure to smash that like button, drop a comment on what tactic you think the human will use next, and don't forget to subscribe for more epic HFY adventures. Alright, let's jump in. The alien patrol moved with mechanical precision, their multi-limbed forms glinting under Zethera 7's twin suns. Commander Terwenen, a towering creature with scales that shimmered like liquid metal, surveyed the barren landscape with a confident gaze. "The zone is clear," he announced, his voice carrying the unshakable certainty of a species that had conquered countless worlds. The other patrol members, a mix of agile scouts and armored enforcers, nodded in agreement, their multifaceted eyes scanning the cracked terrain as though the planet itself might betray some hidden threat. They had arrived expecting resistance. Rumors of insurgent activity and rogue humans had filtered through galactic channels, but the signs before them suggested abandonment. Broken equipment lay scattered across the rocks, and the occasional scorch mark hinted at past skirmishes, yet no movement betrayed the presence of life. "Nothing more than shadows and echoes," muttered one scout, its tone a mixture of relief and disdain. Far above, perched on a jagged cliff hidden beneath a veil of wind-swept foliage, a human watched silently. Elias, his dark eyes sharp behind the scope of his sniper rifle, analyzed the alien formation like a grandmaster studying a chessboard. Each step they took, each position they assumed, revealed patterns he had already anticipated. His fingers rested lightly on the trigger, but there was no rush. Patience was his weapon and overconfidence was theirs. Elias's breath was steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He had trained for moments like this his entire life. Years of combat simulations, survival exercises, and long nights waiting in silence had prepared him for a confrontation where one misstep could mean death. The aliens were formidable, yes, but they underestimated humans. They always did. Their arrogance was a predictable flaw, one that Elias intended to exploit. Down below, Commander Terwenen crouched beside a hovering scanner drone. "Run the sweep again," he ordered. "I want absolute certainty. There can be no mistakes." The drone emitted a soft hum, its sensors gliding over the terrain with a precision that would make most species proud. Yet even the most advanced technology had blind spots, and Elias had chosen his vantage with surgical accuracy. Every rock, every shadow, and every curve of the terrain worked in his favor. As the patrol advanced, small signs began to appear, subtle disruptions in the dust, footprints leading into hidden crevices, a faint glint of something metallic in the distance. Each anomaly was dismissed by the aliens as debris, the work of the previous human units who had already fled. Orenen's pride in his species' superiority made him blind to the possibility that what lay before him was no ordinary human. Elias allowed a small smirk to cross his face. The patrol moved in a predictable rhythm, communicating with clicks and pulses that revealed their positions to anyone trained to notice. He adjusted his scope, marking targets and calculating distances. With each passing second, his plan solidified in his mind. Patience first, precision always, and let the aliens walk themselves into a trap of their own arrogance. The alien scouts paused near a ridge, their attention drawn to a faint shimmer that Elias had deliberately exposed. One of them reached out with a limb, scanning the area, only to find emptiness. Orenen's scales rippled with irritation, and he hissed lowly, signaling the scouts to spread wider. "They are clever," he muttered almost to himself, "but we are patient hunters. Patience will reveal all." Elias remained motionless, a shadow among shadows. His presence was a ghost in the aliens' field of vision. While they spoke in clicks and mechanical tones, he relied on intuition honed through countless human battles. The wind shifted, carrying a subtle scent of the terrain and the faint electrical hum of alien armor. He noted it all. One misjudged angle, one unnoticed weakness, and he would strike, not with reckless force, but with surgical precision that would leave them questioning their entire assessment of humanity. The patrol moved forward more cautiously now. Terwenen's confidence had begun to crack at the edges, though his pride prevented him from admitting uncertainty. He signaled for drones to scan deeper into the shadows, their sensors sweeping the ground, yet nothing appeared. Elias's eyes flicked over the patrol one last time, noting the rhythm, the breathing, the slight sway of their forms. A rhythm that, once broken, would leave them exposed and vulnerable. Finally, the aliens reached the apparent center of the zone. Terwenen raised his clawed limb in a ceremonial gesture of triumph. "The zone is secure," he declared, his voice echoing against the barren cliffs. "Report this to command. There is no resistance." Relief and satisfaction rippled through the patrol as they prepared to document their success. completely unaware that the hunter was already observing them from above, calculating, waiting, and ready to prove that the galaxy had vastly underestimated the humans they so casually dismissed. Elias exhaled slowly, his finger brushing the trigger. The game had begun, and the first move would be his to command. He was a single human, yet in that moment he carried the weight of every human who had ever been written off, every underestimated soldier who had turned the tide of battle through wit, courage, and precision. And as the aliens celebrated their perceived victory, he whispered silently into the wind, unseen but undeniably present, preparing to rewrite their understanding of what a human was capable of. The alien patrol shifted uneasily as the sun dipped lower, stretching shadows across the jagged terrain. Commander Tyranen's scales, which had gleamed so confidently hours before, now reflected a subtle tension. He motioned to a scout hovering nearby. "Recheck the perimeter," he instructed. "I want certainty that nothing remains." The scout clicked a series of rapid signals, scanning the ground with sensors calibrated to detect the slightest anomaly. Yet, despite the advanced technology, nothing betrayed the hidden presence of the human above. Elias observed the movement through the scope of his rifle, his dark eyes tracing every step, every hesitation, every twitch of the alien forms. He noted the way their limbs adjusted to the uneven ground, how their multifaceted eyes reflected the sun at certain angles, and how even the smallest sounds echoed across the rocks. Each detail was a thread in a tapestry of prediction, and he had already woven the outcome in his mind. With a subtle adjustment, he aligned his crosshairs on the lead scout's leg joint, a delicate hinge that supported its armored exoskeleton. A single, perfectly timed shot would immobilize it without alerting the rest of the patrol to his exact location. Elias's breath remained steady. He had learned long ago that calm precision outweighed raw force. He exhaled slowly, squeezed the trigger, and the shot rang out, a clean mechanical click followed by silence. The scout collapsed, the joint shattered, and for a moment the alien formation froze. Tyranen's eyes widened imperceptibly behind his plated visage. "What?" he hissed, but the words died as confusion spread through the ranks. They activated scanners and drones, attempting to locate the source, yet the human remained unseen, perched above like a phantom predator. Elias shifted slightly, careful not to disturb the foliage that masked his position. His mind raced through contingencies, the patrol's likely responses, potential reinforcements, and their patterns of regrouping. He was already planning his next move, exploiting the predictable arrogance of the aliens. Each maneuver they made revealed another weakness, another opportunity for surgical disruption. Below, the patrol reorganized, their movements less fluid, more tentative. "Spread out," Tyranen commanded, his voice sharper now, betraying an edge of frustration. "The threat is localized. Sweep systematically." The drones hummed, scanning rocks and crevices, yet they failed to detect the subtle manipulations Elias had laid in advance. Small tripwires, reflective surfaces angled to distract, noise generators mimicking footsteps. Every measure was designed to make the aliens misread the terrain and their own senses. Elias allowed a flicker of satisfaction to pass through him. He had studied alien behavior extensively, anticipating their reliance on technology over instinct, their tendency to trust sensors over perception. His actions were not reckless. They were an extension of observation, patience, and applied knowledge. Humans had always thrived in environments where others relied too heavily on tools, and now he embodied that principle. A sudden hiss from a nearby ridge drew the patrol's attention. One of the drones malfunctioned, sparks arcing as its sensor misinterpreted the decoy devices. Tyranen's eyes narrowed. "Focus on the anomalies," he ordered. "Do not be distracted." Yet despite his command, the subtle disturbances sowed unease. The patrol had expected a straightforward sweep, a demonstration of dominance, but instead found itself grappling with uncertainty, a concept alien to their disciplined culture. Elias leaned forward slightly, scanning for the next optimal target. His rifle rested lightly on a branch, camouflaged against the shadowed rock. He spotted a communications relay strapped to a scout's back, a weak point that, if disabled, would isolate them from reinforcements. He considered his options: take the shot and risk revealing his position, or wait for a more advantageous moment. Strategy, not impulse, guided him. Patience had carried him this far, and it would continue to do so. The patrol began to divide, attempting to cover more ground. Tyranen, despite his training and experience, felt a prickle of unease. Patterns were not behaving as expected. Sensors indicated movement where none should exist. He hissed lowly to himself, an instinctive acknowledgement of human cunning that he could neither fully articulate nor confront. The concept of a single human controlling the battlefield from unseen vantage points was foreign, yet undeniably real. Elias's first intervention had been subtle, a demonstration of skill rather than force. Now he moved to exploit the disruption. He adjusted the scope to target a heavy armored enforcer, timing the shot to strike the hinge of its elbow joint as it raised a weapon. The shot echoed faintly, precise enough to disable without alerting others to his exact location. Two down, the patrol beginning to comprehend that the zone was not as secure as they had assumed. The aliens hesitated, their usual confidence fractured by uncertainty. Heroism tapped his claw against a nearby rock, a gesture of both irritation and calculation. "They are here," he muttered, more to himself than to his team. "The human is here." Recognition dawned, though grudgingly. Humans were not weak. They were adaptable, resourceful, and, most critically, unpredictable. The very qualities that alien species had often dismissed now placed them at a lethal disadvantage. Elias took note of the change in rhythm, the subtle shifts in posture and coordination. Each micro-adjustment told a story of confusion and growing caution. He allowed a brief smile to pass his lips, not from cruelty, but from acknowledgement of his own effectiveness. This was the nature of battle, not chaos but controlled disruption, guided by intellect and precision. As the sun continued to lower, casting elongated shadows across the terrain, the patrol began to pull back slightly, testing new approaches, scanning for threats that remained unseen. Elias remained perfectly still, a dark silhouette against the fading light, calculating, observing, and waiting for the precise moment to strike again. Finally, after what felt like hours of careful observation and minor disruption, Elias retracted slightly, blending seamlessly into the terrain. The aliens had begun to realize the scale of their underestimation, and that realization alone was a victory. The patrol believed the human presence localized and manageable, but Elias knew better. Their arrogance had already become their weakness, and he would exploit it fully. The wind shifted, carrying the faint metallic scent of alien armor toward him. He adjusted his scope one last time for the day, observing the patrol as they reorganized. They had survived his first strikes, but they were already playing a defensive game, one of their own making. And Elias, unseen but ever present, whispered to himself in the quiet, "Patience first, precision always." The next move would define the day, and he intended to command it. The alien patrol moved cautiously now, their confidence fractured by the invisible presence that stalked them. Commander Tichorwenen's usual calm precision was replaced by a taut awareness, each scale along his neck vibrating with tension. Sensors buzzed intermittently, reporting anomalies that his mind struggled to reconcile. Something was here, something unseen, something intelligent, and it was dismantling their operation without revealing itself. Elias adjusted his scope, noting every reaction. The patrol had started to separate, attempting to cover more ground and isolate the human. One scout crested a rocky outcrop, stepping carefully, yet his movements betrayed fear. Elias marked him but waited. The beauty of his strategy lay in anticipation. Strike too early and the aliens would adapt. Patience remained his greatest weapon. A sudden shudder ran through the patrol as one of the drones misread a reflection in the canyon wall. Sparks arced along its surface, startling the surrounding enforcers. Ichorwenen hissed, signaling them to regroup, but the damage had already been done. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Patterns that once reassured them now seemed to unravel with every microsecond. Elias observed, analyzing how the aliens adjusted, how their overconfidence had left them vulnerable to subtle manipulations, and how their reliance on technology now betrayed them. Elias chose his next target with deliberate care. A communications relay strapped to an enforcer's back hummed with alien energy, linking the patrol to their fleet. A clean, precise shot would sever that connection, isolating them completely. He inhaled slowly, aligning his aim with the faint hum of the relay. The shot rang out, quiet yet devastating. Sparks and smoke erupted as the device shattered. The enforcer froze, alarm flashing across its multifaceted eyes, and the patrol immediately began scanning for the threat that remained unseen. "Spread out. Focus on the perimeter." Tichorwenen barked, voice sharp with tension. The patrol attempted to reorganize, but each step, each adjustment now revealed their unease. The rhythm that had once marked their dominance was gone, replaced by hesitation and doubt. Even the scouts, usually swift and precise, faltered under the pressure of unseen calculation. Elias allowed himself a brief nod. The initial disruption had worked exactly as intended. The patrol was reacting but not intelligently. They were improvising, and improvisation against a strategist was dangerous. He shifted his rifle slightly, preparing for another calculated strike, yet waited. The moment had to be perfect, too early and their learning curve would dull the effect. Below, the aliens attempted a coordinated scan, forming tighter groups and relying heavily on sensors to detect anomalies. But the traps Elias had set, the reflective surfaces, the minor tripwires, the artificially generated noise, continued to mislead them. Each false signal forced them to adjust, creating a cascade of errors. Their focus narrowed, their confidence waned, and the human predator above exploited every hesitation. Tichuanen's patience thinned. His tail flicked nervously across the rocky surface, the motion betraying the tension he struggled to suppress. "They are clever," he hissed, almost as if acknowledging Elias directly. "But we will flush them out. They cannot remain hidden forever." The words carried both a command and a challenge, yet Elias, unseen, had already predicted the patrol's next maneuvers. A group of scouts moved toward a canyon, attempting to corner what they assumed was a human hiding within. Elias anticipated their movement, aligning his scope on a hinged joint of one scout's leg. A single precise strike disabled it, sending the alien crashing to the ground with mechanical clangs. Panic spread instantly. The remaining scouts glanced around, uncertain, realizing that the threat was not only skilled but surgical in approach. "Target located. Eliminate the threat." Tichuanen's command rang out, but it was too late. The patrol's cohesion was shattered. They attempted to communicate, their signals overlapping chaotically as they tried to identify the human sniper. Elias observed every misstep, every moment of hesitation. The aliens were formidable, yes, but they were reacting to his plan, not imposing their own. The advantage was his, absolute and methodical. Elias's mind replayed every tactic he had studied, every scenario he had trained for. He imagined the alien thought process, their hierarchy of decision-making, their reliance on technological superiority. And he exploited it fully. Another shot, this one aimed to disable rather than destroy, clipped a drone stabilizer. It spiraled into the canyon wall, sparks scattering across the rocky floor. The patrol's formation faltered again, confusion rippling through every level of command. Tichuanen hissed in frustration, his eyes narrowing as he calculated possibilities. "Impossible," he muttered, barely audible. No single human should have this level of control. Yet every instinct told him otherwise. The humans were unpredictable, adaptive, and unbound by the conventions that guided alien operations. That unpredictability had now become a weapon, one that had rendered an elite patrol uncertain and fragmented. Elias did not pursue recklessness. He moved slightly, a subtle shift in position, but remained largely invisible against the shadows. From this vantage he could observe the aliens' reactions and adjust his approach accordingly. His patience had forced the patrol to make errors. Their overconfidence had blinded them to the possibility that a single human could dominate their field of vision with strategy alone. The sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows that concealed and revealed in equal measure. The aliens' attempts to adapt became increasingly erratic. Communication was disjointed, sensors were failing to identify the true threat, and Tichuanen's patience frayed. Elias noted every subtle cue, every micro-expression, every twitch of mechanical limb. The patrol was beginning to grasp the scale of their miscalculation. Finally, Elias paused, withdrawing slightly into a concealed hollow. The patrol's morale had already begun to crack. Confusion hung in the air like a tangible fog. They did not yet know the full extent of the threat, but the tension in their movements spoke volumes. Tichuanen's pride had not allowed him to admit it openly, but he felt the first real pangs of fear in decades of service. A single human had disrupted their operation entirely, and he could not predict what would come next. Elias exhaled quietly, letting the silence settle over the canyon. The first wave of disruption was complete. The patrol was fractured, cautious, and aware that they were no longer in control. And from his concealed position above, he smiled slightly, knowing that the real challenge, the orchestration of chaos and precision, was only beginning. The patrol's fractured formation pressed forward with caution, each movement weighted by the uncertainty that now dominated their ranks. Commander Tichuanen's eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the canyon walls with an intensity bordering on obsession. Every shadow seemed a potential threat, every crevice a hiding place for the human they could neither locate nor anticipate. His usual composure had eroded, replaced by the taut vigilance of a predator now hunted. Elias shifted slightly, his position perfectly concealed behind a jagged outcrop. From this vantage he could see the patrol's every adjustment, every subtle misalignment, every micro-hesitation. They believed they were regaining control, but in truth, they were walking directly into the pattern he had anticipated. Patience had led them here, and now precision would cement their downfall. He aimed carefully at an armored enforcer, timing his shot to strike the mechanical joint connecting its heavy weapon arm to its torso. The bullet found its mark, disabling the limb without alerting the rest of the patrol to his exact position. Sparks erupted, the heavy weapon clattering uselessly to the ground. The aliens froze, scanning frantically, their sensors screaming anomalies that led nowhere. Elias allowed himself a measured smile. Every calculated disruption nudged the patrol closer to panic, and every step they took reinforced the superiority of his strategy. Erwin hissed lowly, frustration mounting. "Do not let it escape," he ordered, though his voice carried the tension of doubt. The patrol adjusted, attempting to divide and corner the human sniper. Drones hovered in tighter sweeps, beams of scanning light slicing across the terrain. Yet each adjustment played into Elias's plan. He had anticipated their reliance on technology over instinct, and he had used it to create misdirection, a series of false positions that forced them to waste precious energy and focus. Elias exhaled slowly, tracking the patrol's fracturing formation. The canyon narrowed ahead, a natural choke point. Perfect. He had calculated the patrol's path and knew they would funnel into it, a trap waiting to be triggered with surgical precision. He set a series of small explosive devices, each carefully calibrated to disable without killing, designed to create chaos and amplify the patrol's disorientation. This was not mindless destruction, it was orchestration, a symphony of controlled disruption conducted from the shadows. As the first patrol members crested the ridge, a low explosion rang out, sending a cascade of rocks tumbling down the canyon walls. The aliens skidded to a halt, mechanical limbs adjusting awkwardly to the sudden instability. Panic rippled through the ranks as drones collided with debris, their sensors disrupted, their signals lost in the chaos. Erwin hissed sharply, signaling for regrouping, but the damage to their cohesion was already done. Elias observed every reaction with meticulous care. He had created an environment where the patrol could not operate at full efficiency, where each step and decision carried the weight of uncertainty. He adjusted his scope, targeting a relay on a secondary scout. Another precise strike severed communications, ensuring the aliens were isolated, unable to call for reinforcements or coordinate effectively. The patrol's frustration grew, and their confidence dwindled. One scout attempted to flank him, moving cautiously along a hidden ledge. Elias tracked the movement, timing a shot to disable the leg joint. The scout collapsed, sliding down the slope with mechanical clanging that echoed against the canyon walls. The remaining patrol members froze, their multifaceted eyes reflecting panic they did not know how to process. Commander Tiranen's tail lashed against the rock, a silent indicator of his mounting desperation. Elias remained perfectly still, calculating, observing, letting the patrol's internal tension build. They had expected an easy sweep, a demonstration of dominance, but now every decision carried risk, every hesitation a potential mistake. He had turned their technological superiority and numerical advantage into vulnerabilities. With each passing moment, he strengthened the narrative that humans were not to be underestimated, that a single human mind could control the battlefield with intellect and precision alone. The canyon echoed with confusion. Sparks, clattering metal, and the occasional hiss of a frustrated alien filled the air. Elias knew the patrol was beginning to grasp the enormity of their miscalculation, and he relished the subtle psychological advantage. Their morale was fracturing. Trust in one another, in their technology, in their commander, all eroded beneath the weight of invisible control. Erwin barked orders, attempting to restore discipline, but the rhythm of command faltered. His subordinates were skilled, but they were reacting, not anticipating. Every action they took fed into Elias's strategy. He adjusted his rifle once more, targeting a support drone that had begun to hover too close. A sharp shot disabled its stabilizer, sending it spinning into the canyon wall. The patrol staggered, disoriented, their cohesion nearly obliterated. Elias's mind remained calm amidst the chaos. The human advantage was not in brute force but in control, in the orchestration of the environment and the understanding of an enemy bound by predictable patterns. He shifted slightly, preparing for the next phase, but waited, allowing the patrol's panic to rise organically. Their fear, measured in milliseconds, had become an extension of his battlefield. As the sun dipped behind the canyon walls, shadows lengthening and darkening the narrow corridor, the aliens realized that the zone they had so confidently declared secure was anything but. Ijerwanen's pride, once unshakable, was now tempered with a grudging respect for the human sniper who had reduced his elite patrol to a fragmented, reactive force. Elias observed this realization silently, knowing that respect, earned in the chaos of battle, carried far more weight than mere survival. Finally, the patrol paused, regrouping hesitantly, scanning for threats they could not locate. Elias exhaled quietly, lowering his rifle just enough to survey the results of his orchestration. He had escalated the battle decisively, demonstrating that human ingenuity and tactical patience could outmaneuver even the most disciplined alien forces. The canyon was his stage, the patrol his unwilling actors, and the first act had concluded with their understanding of human potential forever altered. The tension remained thick in the air, the patrol wary and uncertain, yet still unaware of the full extent of what they faced. Elias retreated slightly into deeper shadows, his presence unseen but omnipotent. The aliens were beginning to comprehend that this was not merely a skirmish but a lesson in underestimation. And from his concealed vantage, he prepared for the next phase, knowing that when the final strikes came, the patrol would have no choice but to acknowledge the lethal precision of the human sniper who had rewritten the rules of engagement in the canyon. The canyon fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the distant hum of failing drones and the occasional metallic clatter of exhausted alien limbs. Commander Tyrannen crouched behind a fractured rock, his eyes scanning the terrain with a mixture of frustration and awe. He had trained for decades, led countless patrols, and faced threats that had humbled even the most seasoned soldiers of his species. Yet nothing had prepared him for the precision and patience of a single human sniper. Elias observed the remaining patrol through the scope, his figure blending seamlessly with the shadows above. He had pushed them to their limits, exploiting every weakness, orchestrating chaos with a calm that seemed almost unnatural. The aliens were skilled, coordinated, and heavily armed, but all their training, technology, and confidence had been rendered impotent by a combination of human ingenuity, observation, and discipline. He exhaled slowly, appreciating the quiet after the crescendo of calculated strikes. Tichwanen's patrol had begun to falter completely. Scans were erratic, formations uneven, communication fragmented. Every attempt to regroup met resistance from both the environment and the unseen adversary who had turned their assumptions into weapons. The commander's pride had not yet allowed him to surrender outright, but his movements betrayed a grudging respect. He gestured toward the remaining scouts, a silent acknowledgement that they could no longer act with certainty. Elias waited for the perfect moment, the culmination of hours of strategy, patience, and observation. He had learned their rhythm, anticipated their instincts, and now the trap he had set would close entirely. With a subtle shift, he adjusted his aim on the patrol's central communications node, the final linchpin of their coordination. One precise shot would sever the last link, isolating each alien and ensuring their movements were guided by confusion rather than command. The shot rang out with quiet authority. Sparks erupted from the central node, sensors flickering and drones losing stabilization. Panic became tangible, rippling through the ranks like a living entity. Tichwanenen hissed sharply, signaling for a retreat, but the canyon's terrain had already been exploited to its maximum effect. Slopes were mined with debris, choke points lined with obstacles, and false trails misled the remaining scouts into disorientation. The aliens were trapped in a battlefield of their own making, guided unknowingly by human calculation. Elias exhaled, lowering the rifle slightly, his eyes sweeping the patrol. None of them moved with certainty now. Fear, confusion, and grudging respect mingled in the air. He had not needed to kill recklessly, disabling had been enough. Every motion, every hesitation, every misstep reinforced the narrative that humans were not merely resilient, they were lethal in intellect, creativity, and precision. Tichwanen's eyes met the shadows where Elias was concealed. Though the human remained unseen, the commander could sense the dominance, the orchestration of events that no technology could predict. He hissed lowly, the sound of awe mixed with frustration. A human, a single human, he muttered, acknowledging the undeniable. The patrol, elite by alien standards, now understood the gravity of underestimating humanity. Elias shifted to a final vantage point, surveying the battlefield. His mind catalogued every detail, the patterns, the broken equipment, the minor injuries, the disarrayed formations. He understood the aliens' capabilities, their weaknesses, and their pride. They were formidable opponents, yet none had adapted beyond what he anticipated. His victory was not merely in physical disruption but in the psychological dominion he had asserted over the patrol. The remaining scouts attempted to regroup for a final coordinated sweep, but Elias had anticipated it. Small detonations, precise and controlled, forced them to scatter, each motion reflecting confusion and frustration rather than strategy. Terwenen hissed in exasperation, his tail lashing against the rocks, the visible manifestation of a commander grappling with the limits of his own authority. The human sniper had become more than a threat. He had become a force that reshaped their understanding of tactical supremacy. Elias's patience remained unbroken. He allowed them to move into positions of disadvantage, then adjusted his aim on a weakly armored enforcer attempting to flank him. The shot clipped the joint, sending the alien staggering and collapsing onto the uneven ground. The patrol's morale fractured completely. Coordination was gone, technology had failed to provide advantage, and the realization that they had been outmaneuvered by a single human soldier settled over them like a suffocating fog. Terwenen drew himself up, scaling a jagged rock to gain a better vantage. His voice, strained yet commanding, issued a last attempt at discipline. Regroup or perish. But the words fell hollow, their authority diminished by the visible chaos around him. Elias watched, calculating the precise moment to end the confrontation without unnecessary bloodshed. His goal had never been mere destruction. It had been demonstration, teaching, and survival through intellect and skill. With a final, deliberate adjustment, Elias exposed himself just enough to signal, though no words were needed. His figure, calm and composed, contrasted sharply with the disarrayed patrol below. The aliens recoiled instinctively, sensing the control he exerted without effort. Terwenen hissed in acknowledgement, the first sound of concession he had allowed himself in hours. He knew the battle was lost, not through brute strength, but through the inexorable precision of a human mind operating without arrogance yet with absolute mastery. The canyon fell into silence once more. The patrol, fragmented and humbled, began retreating under Terwenen's hesitant guidance. Each step carried the weight of hard-learned respect for a species they had once dismissed. Elias watched them leave, eyes scanning for residual threats, but none remained. His mission was complete. The aliens had survived, yet they had been taught a lesson they would carry to every corner of the galaxy. As he retreated into the shadows, Elias reflected on the battle, on the patience required to orchestrate chaos, and on the power of intellect and discipline in a universe that too often favored numbers and technology over adaptability. Humans were underestimated across the stars, yet here in the canyon of Zethera 7, that underestimation had become the aliens' undoing. The final rays of the twin suns touched his figure, casting long shadows across the rocks. Terwenen and his remaining patrol receded into the distance, their movements cautious, their pride tempered by a grudging respect that would shape future encounters. Elias remained unseen, yet his presence lingered as a reminder. Humanity, though small in number, carried within it a lethal combination of patience, precision, and ingenuity that no alien could predict. He exhaled quietly, slipping into the fading light. The battlefield was silent, the lesson delivered, and the human sniper had once again proven that intellect, strategy, and unwavering calm could triumph where technology and arrogance failed. In the galaxy's history, the story of a single human defeating an elite alien patrol would become legend, whispered across worlds as a testament to the unpredictable, undeniable power of humanity.